Well, it is another morning here on the forest moon of Endor. In the Redwoods. I had actually planned on going to a totally different location up the coast because the conditions I'd had here the last few days were kind of not real inspiring. And then I woke up and got out of my tent this morning and I could see overcast. Sure enough, there was fog rolling in off the coast. So these are the exact conditions I had in mind when I got in my truck and drove all the way to the coast. So of course I called an audible and I came back to a familiar patch of trees that I've worked several times doing this trip so far. When you get great conditions like this, ones that you've been waiting for, it's not like I'm gonna go explore a new area. I'm gonna go to where I know because I don't wanna waste time coming up short and not having compositions, So this is actually the same patch of trees I shot 2 nights ago where I did a backlit scene with the sun setting over the ocean. Now it's the same scene, only it's completely socked in with fog. So completely transformed the scene. In fact, it's even more fog than I had in mind. So I was thinking just enough to kind of help separate the elements in the forest. Well, I got that and then some. This is actually a really moody looking photo on the ground glass. But I was really excited for it because this is exactly what I was hoping for. So yay for that. So the first Provia shot was 5 seconds at f32, and then the second was 4 seconds at f32. The reason I took that third stop away is because after shooting the first exposure, the fog kind of started to thin out a little bit right there. I was worried about that hot spot. So I took a third stop away and exposed it at 4 seconds instead. That'll make the trees in the foreground a little darker than I kind of imagined. And then after shooting that, I was still a little unsure and I was a little worried. This still might be a little too bright, so that's why I shot the Ektar shot. So that was 8 seconds at f32, 8 seconds accounting for reciprocity. So now, just in case the 2 slide films overexpose there and it kind of ruins the shot, now I got a safety shot on color negative that I'm not too worried about because it's got a little more latitude. So, yeah. Absolutely beautiful. The sun's kind of a goldish color this morning. There's probably some fires on the east side. That's kind of making it kind of turn to a golden color. And that's peeking through the very tops of the trees in the canopy now. It's absolutely gorgeous with the fog and mixed in. Makes it look like a fairy tale forest. It's absolutely fantastic, yeah. So now the mad rush to get down here, because I was worried that the fog was going to dissipate by the time I got set up on a composition. So now that's over. I got the first shots in the bag. I'm a lot more relaxed now. So now I'm going to have a stroll around and see what else I can pick out. It'd be really cool to get a couple compositions while this fog's here. With any luck, this one will be a pretty productive day.
So here is the first Provia exposure. I'll tell you what, this is pretty much exactly what I had in mind when I planned this trip to go to the Redwoods and shoot redwood groves. It's got the fog, it's got the trees, foggy trees. It's magic. I absolutely love it. Exposure, I think, is okay. Maybe just a slight bit darker than I might have preferred, but I was really worried about these highlights here. I didn't want these to blow out so bad that they just become a major distraction. And granted, this is okay if it's really white, because the sky was pretty white. However, the foreground, I was really happy with. I like the detail. It looks like everything's tack sharp, so I'm pleased with that. The exposure on the tree trunks is just a tad dark, so I'll probably brighten that up just a hair, but not a terrible amount. I kind of want it to be moody, I think that the film captured this really well. The second exposure, more the kind of similar thing. Although I think this one was just about a third stop or less darker, if I remember right. Looking at my notes here. This one is just a tad brighter. I'll probably end up going with this one because I think the film held detail just fine up here. So, and then as a safety, I did shoot a Nectar exposure, which seems like it turned out just fine. I think all of these turned out technically just fine. Looks like motion blur is good. I think I'm going to end up going with this one. So I'm super happy with this one. I'm really glad that I got this on color slide film too, because this is exactly what I was going for. Really happy. As always, let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Come.
I ran across this tight little scene that's got this long dead log. It's got a lot of moss and a lot of, spider webs and clovers all over it, and fallen dead stuff, all kinds of cool stuff all over this log. It just looks like some kind of old, thing you'd see in a painting or a cartoon or something, or like something like your grandmother might have in her ceramic shop and they hand painted it. It just looks super cool. Some of the clovers are upside down, like the petals have kind of fallen off or something's happened to them, and the bottom sides are purple. So you get all of this awesome color. And yeah, I think it frames up really nicely. So I set up a composition with 150 millimeter Nikon, just trying to take in this log and all the rolling clovers that are over it. So there's a couple knots in a log, and there's one prominent one that I put on the right side. It's got a real bright little juvenile clover growing out of it that looks really cool. That's my focus point. So I focused there and then just stopped down to get the rest of the background. Had to use a little bit of front tilt to get my plane of focus to follow the tops of these clovers down in the foreground and all the way up over the log. And it may have a little bit of focus fall off in the corners and on the very top or bottom of the composition. I'm okay with that because I want the focus point to be that knot. Yeah, super colorful. Looks like my timing was just about right on it too, because right when I started recording this, the sunlight broke through the trees and landed on the composition, would have ruined my exposure. But I shot 2 sheets of Velvia 50 on this one. I am in complete shade here, and then I got subdued lighting in the trees with all the fog and stuff, so it is pretty dark down here. So my metered exposure was 20 seconds at f32, and then I had to add some time for reciprocity adjustments, so that put me at 34 seconds. So I got a couple different apps that help me figure out reciprocity adjustments, and then I have some of my own handwritten notes that I got from the film data sheets. 16 seconds or longer, up to 32 seconds. The data sheet says to add 2/3 of a stop. So I calculated 34 seconds out of that. One of the apps I use suggested 37. So about a 3-second differential there. So I think I have enough latitude in my scene. I just shot doubles, and I shot one at 34 and one at 37 seconds. So there, we'll see who's correct. So that's that composition. Super cool scene. I hope it turns out. I think the Velvia is going to push the colors a little bit. It may actually turn a little cartoonish in some spots. It's pretty colorful scene already, but I'm okay with that. I think even if it goes a little oversaturated, that's fine. That's kind of what I was going for in the scene anyway. So it's just kind of popping colors and lots of cool elements to look at. So this location has been great to me. It's going to be a long, hard climb out of here. It's all uphill. There's no flat spots to this hike. And I meandered down here this whole time, knowing full well that I'm going to have to pay the trail gods for the good lighting conditions that I've gotten. But all I've got left on me right now is slide film. I got some Provia and I got some Velvia left, and that's it. I think I'm gonna pack the camera up and start making my way up there, and maybe I can stop and shoot on the way up to take a breather, because this one's gonna be rough.
So here's the first Velvia exposure. So I have kind of been playing around with a nickname of calling this one the fairy tale log, or something to that effect. Something to do with, you know, a fairy tale forest kind of thing. Now, even though it's just a fallen chunk of an old, long, rotted away, starting to decompose log, it's nothing really fairy tale about that. It's just kind of what I was thinking in my mind when I was shooting it. I think Velvia absolutely excelled on this one. This was probably, if I'm going to be totally honest, it was one of my favorite photos of the trip. I was really stoked with this. I thought the exposure was just bang on. Really happy with all the detail. There's a nice balance between, you know, clovers and this kind of dead stuff. The mosses, I think the greens are beautiful. Purples really stand out great on the film. There is a really bright spot. I thought was a defect. I don't remember this, but it's actually a mushroom. I must have seen that when I was looking at the scene, but it's just kind of funny. I don't remember it. But at first I thought it was a defect, but no, that's a perfectly rendered mushroom. So the second exposure I took also turned out well. Now, I said in the field, there was two different reciprocity calculations that I was working with here. And it's kind of funny how sensitive Velvia is, because the difference between these two, the first shot was 34 seconds and the second was 37. Now, I don't know how well this shows up on this camera, but I can see the difference with my eye. So I can tell, if you look right here, I can tell that this one's slightly darker than that one. That's the only way that I know that this was the first exposure, because it was 3 seconds shorter. And it just blows my mind. On a 34-second exposure versus 37, a 3-second difference was enough to actually render slightly different. There's a little more exposure on the very tip of this log here than there is on that one. And this whole area is a little different. So I think this one is my preference, because I like the way this looks. It's not quite so hot. I think it looks good. So my focus point on this image was right here inside of this knot. There's a few little juvenile plants growing out of here. Who knows how long this piece of deadwood's been laying there? I have no idea, but man, I thought it looked just absolutely cool.
Well, this has certainly been a very productive morning. This fog's held in for a long time. It's been really good. It's probably the most productive day I've had so far. And it is still morning, but I'm gonna cut the video right here. Otherwise, this is gonna drag on for a really long time. So I'll do a part 2 from this location. So make sure you subscribe so you don't miss that. And if you enjoyed this video, sure help me out if you give me a thumbs up. That really helps little channels like mine that are still growing, help us get some traction. So really appreciate that. And if you want to be notified when that part 2 goes up, make sure you ring the bell. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next video. This is what I get for dragging a monorail studio camera out in the field. All metal behemoth, ridiculously big tripod.